trance. Right?
Yeah, perfecting one's absorption in bhajan,
Yes.
in Krishna, and one's ability to be absorbed, and the different symptoms thereof that comes. And Maharaj is making a correlation between the devotee's absorption and a yogi's absorption in their specific meditation. Yeah. So he's given different examples, you know. This is progressive Krishna consciousness, you know, like the consciousness becomes attracted to Krishna, and that attraction leads to absorption in Krishna. Yeah. So it gets to the point where we forget we're even in the material world, which could be a great benediction. So yeah. All right. But yeah.
Yeah, the last paragraph tells that. Shall I quickly read the last paragraph?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
And while yogis also attain Samadhi, they do so with great difficulty and with a realization that depends upon their aspiration. For the most part, yogis will fall away from their sadhana. By comparison, accomplished devotees will rarely, if ever, do so. This feature of Bhakti Samadhi now follows. Okay.
Yeah, let's just offer some prayers to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Vadhaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Kaudavhani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavadi Pashtataras Dharine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yeah, just on that last, on that point, on that paragraph that you just read, it's probably, if we were to do, or if there was a survey of the fallout of those who take to this path to the path of impersonal meditation, be it Buddhists or the classic school of Mayavad practitioners, then you probably find that most of them will not complete or reach any significant stages of perfection. It's very difficult. Krishna mentions that in Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Kleshotikadas tashte sham. That to realize, for someone who is embodied, to realize the nature of oneness, so-called, is very difficult. So we have our fallout of those who take to bhakti, no doubt, but the fallout is much more greater and bigger for those who follow this very difficult path of so-called impersonalism, you know. And it's mentioned here that, yeah, actually, I'm just speaking what's going to come up. So let's begin reading, yeah?
The yogis who meditate on things of substance attain what is known as Samprajnanta Samadhi, of which there are two kinds. When the object of meditation is something gross, then it is not much more than an elevated form of mental speculation. However, when the object is the supersoul, then that attainment is spiritual. Then there are yogis who have no object of meditation, and they can attain asamprajnata samadhi. They lose all sense of awareness, even of themselves. This is the perfection of today's non-Vedic meditation, in which students are told to clear their mind of all doubts. Even if perfected, none of these yogis experience the taste of pure service to Krishna. Moreover, they all undergo great difficulty for a paltry perfection that has a very low success rate. And as a result, many unsuccessful yogis become professionals, attracting followers with their limited knowledge and attainment. Uddhav discloses an unspoken truth of yoga practice, that the majority of aspirants seeking samadhi abandon the process in frustration. O lotus-eyed Lord, generally those yogis who try to steady the mind experience frustration because of their inability to perfect the state of trance. Thus, they vary in their attempt to bring the mind under control. And even those few who do succeed in attaining samadhi, because they take pride in their accomplishment in yoga, they fail to take shelter of Krishna, as the result of which they are defeated by the illusory energy. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of Vishwamitra Muni, who at the stage of samadhi was allured into sex by the Apsara Menaka. On the other hand, by constant nam bhajan and absorption in pastime, devotees who depend on Krishna's blessing eventually reach their destination. The Lord emphasizes that this success is not an exemption, but a rule. I know this slok, anyway, I'm not saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me.
Yeah, just as because often you will see that because these some person, I mean, like in India, for example, you get persons they will take to quite a severe sadhana and practice of meditation, perhaps for many years, 10 years or more, 15 years. And then as Prabhupada says, they get to some point where they give up the actual path. But because they've been austere and regulated for many years and practicing meditation, they do acquire some, how can I say, they do acquire some powers or some powers of personality, and they do attract followers. So then they became famous, like in India, see there's famous yogis, you know, who start massive businesses based on yoga practice, for example. I won't mention our names specifically, but they're out there in India. Yeah. And then they become businessmen in one sense. Of course, they won't appreciate that term being called businessman, but they become, Patanjali, there's the whole, there's, you can see it's not hard to find in India. You've got persons who are almost, there was one of them who were trying to copyright the different yoga asanas. So that no one, so these asanas are copyrighted, have a copyright. So anyway, etc., etc. They may become philanthropic. They may start charities, which is good in one sense materially, but in essence, they have given up their path. Some of them become politicians as well. That's quite common in India, where they become speakers of the people's difficulties, and they were doing yoga, but then they take up the cause of the downtrodden. It's very common in India. But they build up a certain personal shakti from their years of meditation, but then they fall away from the practice. That's what has been mentioned here. Any questions here? Anything here? It's just Okay, I can read a little bit as well. To practice samadhi, yogis always seek out secluded places where their attempts at trance will not be disturbed. On the other hand, Vaishnavas in Lord Chaitanya's line generally preach and so often find themselves in crowded metropolises, not in unfrequented forests. Yeah, we're based in central London. How do preachers or devotees living in cities avoid disturbance? By making the best possible arrangement, and then depending on Krishna to protect them from the distractions. Okay, Marge goes on. Okay, any questions about that? How's everyone doing? Or everyone, there's only a few here today. Best possible arrangement. Yeah.
I was thinking, Prabhu,
Yeah.
in cities, we get disturbed, but we do loud Harinam so that we don't get disturbed.
Yeah, that's it. You just to allow the Harinam so we don't get disturbed. But at least we should arrange for ourselves our place, a place where we can chant, peaceful. Even if we're living in London, it's good to have, we shouldn't live on the street because we'll be too disturbed. We should have a situation for ourselves, So you have the flat, you have your house, and you try and sometimes it may take some time for you to find that place where you can happily do your bhajan. But Krishna will help as well. Krishna definitely helps. For devotee.
I'm sorry. Also, I feel that, like, say, you coming from your place to the temple or whoever, right? And you see all sorts of things going on in the city, shops, displays, whatever.
Yeah.
But how we change our consciousness, seeing these items, you just change your consciousness straight away, into Krishna consciousness. Whereas if you were living in the forest, you might not see all that, but this deep desires or whatever would not come up, and you wouldn't be able to work with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So in one sense, we're practiced every day. We are practicing facing the metropolis.
Yes.
So we're practiced in withdrawing. Like it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Like a devotee or yogi. So withdraw the senses within, like a tortoise within the shell. So yeah, there's so much to offer us, and hopefully we're in the practice of turning away from everything that's offered. which a lot of people, what's it, my Guru Maharaj was quoting one of the Madhavacharya gurus who since passed away. They're chosen to be sannyasi guru when they're born, and he was a sannyasi for his whole life, and very much revered leader in the Madhva Sampradaya, and he was giving a speech, and he mentioned that he could not do what the ISKCON devotees do by distributing books, because he said he would fall down. And here's someone who's, he was chosen to be a sannyasi and trained and that way since he was born practically. But he was appreciating the devotees of the ISKCON devotees who are out there in the metropolises, a special Shakti coming from, special protection that comes from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Yeah, special protection. Yeah, there's something mystical about, well, it's not mystical about preaching. It's quite, if you preach, if you go and distribute books, you can be in the midst of a very licentious atmosphere. But no, sometimes it is challenging though. So sometimes devotees should be able to identify when they need to retreat. Because sometimes it can wear devotees down. Sometimes it probably does. And that's why also Prabhupada established Mayapur and Vrindavan and expected devotees to go visit there to get spiritual strength, especially those in the West, So that's also there as well. We should, yeah. I'm sure we all do, is when we do go to the Holy Dham, then we really appreciate it, Yeah. So, but yeah, we should, yeah. And if, is that, that's a comment you made, wasn't it, in the day, Mother? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This means that a devotee selects a lifestyle that is favorable to his goals and rejects everything that is not, which means they don't work in a bar. They don't work in nightclubs, for example. Otherwise, he will not be peaceful enough to undertake Nam Bhajan. what to speak of reaching its perfection. Yeah. A sadhaka must be fixed in his determination and not be distracted by unnecessary material objects that can entangle him into possessiveness and deviate him from sadhana. Yeah. That's why it's good for devotees to to have an occupation which is simple and is not too demanding mentally. Yeah. Unless you're qualified, unless you have the particular karma for it. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, you may have a choice. You can start your own business and try to make the business successful, but that may take a lot of endeavor, may take a massive endeavor, and it may take a lot of your energy. Or you can just go and work in a shop, or you can just go and work and have a simple occupation and pay your way, rather than so. I guess it depends on the devotee. There's some devotees are very, they have an aptitude and a natural ability for business. Yeah. So that's there as well. But generally, we should simple living, high thinking. Yeah, we should want to live simply. Anything on that? Oh. Okay. We should keep in mind the injunction of Brahma-Sutra discussed in an earlier chapter. Its directive should be the rule of thumb for all Vaishnavas, whether they reside in a city or a forest. A devotee serious about sadhana bhajan would mold his life in pursuance of the following rule. So he's going to give that rule now. The Sanskrit is Yatreka grata tatra vishenat. Okay, the translation to that is, someone else is coming in, Gaya is coming. Krishna consciousness should be practiced in a place, time, and condition where single-pointed concentration, ekagrata, of the mind is possible. Okay? Unquote. And he continues, there is no arguing the fact that a secluded setting is superior to an urban area. All right. Yeah, I think we spoke about this when we spoke about this section. Like when I was in Mayapur one time, I was chanting in a temple room. It happened to be coming up to Gaur Panim. So it wasn't just me in a temple room. It must have been 4,000 devotees in a temple room with all announcements going on and this and that, and all chanting japa and this. So many devotees coming and going, and so I was appreciating it, but after a few days, I was doing a analysis of my japa. I could see, although it was wonderful to be in the atmosphere, I wasn't able to concentrate as much as I would normally do. So then I started chanting my rounds where I was staying, There's a little garden downstairs and no one there, So I found I could absorb myself more in japa just by, it sounds strange, by leaving the temple. Now that isn't always recommended. We should always want to chant with devotees, but sometimes we may need to chant, in a very quiet place. It might be what we need, I think even Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that in the Harinam Chintamani. So whatever that place and situation is, where you can best concentrate, that's the best place. And it might mean you have to, as funny as it sounds, it might mean you, like for instance, in our temple it's very small. So on days of festivals, then a lot of devotees avoid the temple room for japa because it's just too busy, it's too small. Especially if there's a few families from East London with all their children. And it's often difficult. So often you see devotees will chant by Tulsi, They would chant in the seminar room. They would go for a walk, you know. So you understand, you have to, whatever place is going to be good for you to be absorbed in chanting, you know. And it may not be the temple, strange as it sounds.
Okay, so never test this question out because I almost ruined my poor blueberry whale plush trying to do this. First, I thought I could use an ice cube to freeze its line, but it didn't solidify. By the way, this yourself. Anyway,
About ice cubes and all right, let's read on. Any questions or comments? Okay, everyone can still hear me? Say yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Great. Okay. Okay, when Gopalkumar found himself in Tapaloka, the peaceful atmosphere improved meditation on his mantra. And in turn, the mantra exerted an increased influence on him. Srila Prabhupada wanted his followers to regularly visit, he's saying here, yeah, Vrindavan and Mayapur, to avail themselves to the spiritual atmosphere that pervades those places. And he told devotees that after a lifetime of preaching, they could retire to either place for Nam Bhajan. Srila Prabhupada invited all of his followers, everyone, he said. Then there's an extensive quote. Let's see where it's from. It's from a lecture from Vrindavan, 30th of August. Okay, you ready to hear this lecture? Quote, this is going to end this chapter. We should make our life so simple and easy that we can get our necessities of life without any hard labor and save time to advance in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so plan your early retirement if you've not done that already. Yeah, that is perfect civilization. This is not perfect civilization. There is every chance of being influenced by these lusty desires, and that is going on, especially in the Western country. For fulfilling these lusty desires, there are so many clubs at night, nightclubs, bottomless and topless, and so many advertisements. This is not civilization. Civilization is peaceful life, and we should be satisfied in simple mode of life and think of Krishna. Therefore, Vrindavan life is like that. Vrindavan life, especially those who are engaged in devotional service. So just stopping here, I remember there's one godbrother of mine, and I won't mention his name, but he was spending some time in Vrindavan, you know, but he had a bit of a passionate disposition. So when he went to Calcutta, he felt himself getting so excited of going into a big city because he had a passionate disposition. So if you're too passionate, then you find it very difficult to stay in a peaceful place. You'll be too restless, you know, and you'll find some excuse or to cut short, you know, and you're going to go into the city. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay. Any questions, comments, please feel free. So continuing, this is not civilization is peaceful life. So we have opened this temple to give facility to the elderly section of human being to come and live with us. We invite all elderly persons, especially retired persons. They should come and live with us. We have got a nice guest house, and if required, we can construct many other guest houses. At least those are retired. Everyone should retire after 50th year, okay? Any of you still working and you're 50 and above? That is the injunction of the Sastras, that Panchashod Vanit Vanam Vrajet. After 50 years, one should give up family life and Vanam Vrajet. Vanam means Vrindavan. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj has advised. Then he quotes verse from the Bhagavatam, well-known verse. I just read the translation. Prabhupada gives a paraphrase of it anyway. Vanam gato, one should go in Nirvana, in Vrindavan, then what do we do there? Harim ashrayeta. Otherwise, if we live in Vrindavan like monkeys and other animals, that will not be beneficial. Harim ashrayeta. Come here, live here, and take shelter of Hari. That is the ultimate goal. Therefore, Hari personally says, Krishna, Shavadamam Prityaja Mam Ekam Samaram Bhaja Aham Ashrayeta. So we are not only inviting Indians throughout the whole world, now we have got connection with the whole world. We invite everyone. At least after the age of 50, they should come here in Vrindavan. They should live peacefully and take shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram and be happy in this life and get salvation in the next. Unquote. That's from a lecture, 1975. Okay, any questions about that? Comments? One question might be that Vrindavan's quite an intense place to live compared to my little flat, you know. So that's a consideration as well. But there is many devotees who have done that. They've bought a place in Braj, they bought a place in Mayapur, you know. But again, it's not so easy. There's many devotees who bought these places and then sold them because of various reasons, you know. So no, you have to make our way in this world very carefully, you know. But the point that's being made here, that we should prepare, you know, prepare for going back to Godhead, you know? Prepare for doing nice bhajan. Let me just read the last two paragraphs of this chapter. In Hungary, we have established new Vajdam and installed Radha Shyama Sundara in a replica of Vrindavan, and with a similar purpose. After spending their lives in serving Srila Prabhupada's mission in Hungary, devotees can come and live in Krishna Valley, chant Hare Krishna, serve the lordships, and be absorbed in Samadhi. We now conclude on conditions for the cultivation of Samadhi. When attained, these attributes are characteristic of the Vaishnava who has attained strong attachment to Krishna. Vaishnava Samadhi. The next chapter concludes our study of Smarandas. Okay? Next chapter, in praise of Samadhi. Any comments or questions out there? How are you going with your retirement plan?
It also depends on, like going to live in Vrindavan, in Mayapur also depends on your, what you're looking for, you know.
What, a 2-bedroom place or a 3-bedroom place?
No, not a place like that. What your consciousness is, you know.
Yeah, you're saying some people can go there for the wrong reason?
Yeah,
The
we could
mature reason?
go, I'm in Vrindavan, yes, I will do this, that. Well, you got to go there that you want to really, really get into
Some
deeper
serious
Krishna
bhajan.
conscious kind of thing, yes, and not to look for association, this, that. Okay, association is there, but you should be quite fixed in your mind when you go to places like that, you know.
Yeah, otherwise you can be easily distracted. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially it's interesting the social development of Vrindavan is, for example, like bloody roads will go in Kartik, but Kartik's supposed to be one of the most busiest times in Vrindavan. But I think your point is right. We should make a Sankalpa before we visit Vrindavan and plan out what we're going to do, so that will help us to not be distracted.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
I do it every time. I'm a bit better now because I go every year for teaching and things like that. But when I was to go to Mayapur, I would often do less reading and chanting than I did when I was in London. Because there's a certain, go there with devotees and it's quite exciting and there's this to do, that to go, and this to that, and you're living in one room or something and it's difficult and it's, Now it's a bit better for me personally when I go to Mayapur. We have a nice place there, a temple, so I can do better hearing and chanting. But that was often a conundrum for me when I go to Mayapur. It's fantastic and the atmosphere is very enlivening in of itself. But I had to be quite strict and quite focused in order to chant extra rounds if I wanted to, or to read more. For instance, there's so many places to eat in Mayapur. I mean, you know the scene, especially Mayapur. It's a bit more of a festival.
Like I've got the same thing. Like I have to. This time I want to go in Kartik, and normally I go with few friends and we meet up and we're going here, there, everywhere. But this time it's going to be on my own. So I'm really working with my head how I want to spend my time, you know.
Yes, so plan it out, you know, plan out the day.
I'm really looking forward to being on my own and doing what I want to do for a change, not running around what others are doing or whatever. So I'm really looking forward to fixing
It'll be a good test because you might find yourself wanting to run around after some time.
Well, I'm old now, so I want to. Anyway.
Now, the next chapter is just a few pages, and it's very inspiring. It's very kind of and encouraging. So let's just press ahead in the next chapter. So you can read my voice. I'm losing my voice a bit here. I just had another Zoom meeting just before this, and another 2-hour meeting in a day. So, so everyone's okay out there. We're going into chapter 32, which is
in praise of Samadhi.
Yeah. So very encouraging chapter. Well, every chapter is, but this one is specifically aimed at giving us confidence and encouragement of what we've just read. Yeah.
Okay. It must be admitted that reaching and perfecting Samadhi, the stage whereat a practitioner may knock on the door of ecstatic devotion, is neither easy nor quick. One needs to be spiritually adept and resolutely determined. We should remember that Bhav Bhakti is rarely achieved in the trance of attachment in Krishna's requisite for it. But then pure devotees are a rare and special breed among the multitude of seekers. Thus, statistic and more relevant Lord Chaitanya's blessings are on their side. It can be done. They can do it. We can do it. In the following verse, Krishna glorifies the stage of Samadhi and encourages the sadhaka to remain determined in his systematic effort at perfection. While the Bhagavad Gita speaks to yogis, Srila Prabhupada's purports speak to devotees. Still, whatever applies to the lesser monastics, Hatha yogis, is applicable to the superior Vaishnavas. The advice of the Lord is applicable to all practitioners. Surely some of our readers have dealt with doubts regarding their eligibility for the perfection and their ability to go back to Godhead in this life. In reading this book, does the reader think, while these pages are inspiring, in Smaran Das really something I can practically refine? So it's finale of what's that? Samadhi. And if I were to attain trance, will Krishna give me entrance into his kingdom of love? Ascending the stage of Smarandas requires perseverance and a conviction that it can be done. This conviction is our faith and in the promise of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. And faithless perseverance brings its reward, which in this case is Samadhi in Nam Bhajan, an attainment glorious to the extreme. Krishna praises this accomplishment in the following verses.
Yeah, this verse is coming up in our Bhagavad Gita reading, actually. Well,
Let me put the light on 1 second. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In this joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, relished through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Devotional trance attained by the grace of Nam Sankirtan is characterized by complete absorption in the attributes of Krishna, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. A devotee has no connection with the material aspects of life, for he is now fully dedicated to the fruits of Nam Bhajan. By the grace of Krishna's names, a devotee is immersed in his identity as spiritual soul and may also have a strong inclination to his spiritual form and service. Although not yet situated in the bliss of transcendence, a devotee in trance experiences pleasure that surpasses all sensual enjoyments. The joy of being one in thought with Krishna's divine sport creates such a deep impression within the heart that it is almost unheard of that a devotee would again revert to sense gratification. Elated by this unprecedented happiness, he looks back at the many years of effort and failure, at the hardship and sacrifices, and thinks, fully convinced, it was all worthwhile. If I had to, I would do it again. There is nothing better than this. And while the greatest challenge rising to Bhav Apan Das is yet to come, for now he basks in the happiness of his attainment. If Krishna has brought him this far, he will assist him to the next step. However difficult that may be, again the devotee thinks, why would Krishna have brought me this far to then turn me back? Surely he will not withdraw his mercy now. As tricky and elusive as he, and love for him may be, such is the attainment of Samadhi, wherein a devotee no longer suffers the threefold miseries of life. He now sees his material body being as distant from him as the bodies of others. It is one of many in the far off crowds.
okay. Any comments here, questions? So, I was remembering there's that quite well documented case of not documented but well documented Bhakta Tirtha Maharaj when he was leaving his body. You know, he made it a very public affair, you know. All the devotees were there, etc., watching him go through the stages of leaving the world. And there's one part where he's expressing in great ecstasy to during a kirtan to Radha Swaj I remember these words. It's saying, it doesn't get better than this. It doesn't get better than this. So he was in great ecstasy of Samadhi. So that cancer was, he was kind of, yeah, this cancer is wonderful. That was his ecstatic conclusion. And he was saying again, it doesn't get better than this. It doesn't get better than this. So that, so it's quite a substantial experience, that what one experiences by Krishna's grace, one looks back and everything that one went through, although at the time it seemed like one is completely bewildered and unsure of what's happening. But when they attain these perfections, one looks back and thinks, it was all wonderful. If it brings me to this, it's all Krishna's kind mercy, you know. But I'm tempted to do a bit more reading. I think I read a bit faster, and I want to try and. So, the resolute determination to gain. Anyone wants to give any comments, please shout out to us. Please unmute and share or ask a question. The resolute determination to gain shelter under Krishna's lotus feet described above is rarely reached without the sadhaka fording many rivulets and of doubts. Even having to read the glories of devotional service, a sadhaka may have thought, quote, how is it possible for me to attain such perfection? Anyone thought that as we're reading this book? Yes. How is it possible? Taking compassion upon his devotee, one day Krishna speaks from within the sadhaka's heart. Quote, have faith in me and follow the path marked by the acharyas. Unquote. At first, the devotee wonders whether he is hearing his mind. But as the special bliss spreads throughout his being, he is convinced otherwise, and yet doubts continue to linger. And he asks, quote, oh Lord, is it really possible? Unquote. Krishna is patient, after all. He too has invested so much time to escort this jiva to his current attainment. The Lord continues, quote, we the acharyas and I are not small men. What is difficult, we make easy. What is rare, we make abundant. Unquote. What do I have to do? Krishna says, you must make every endeavor to free yourself of attachment and invest your everything in me. Listen to what I have to say. Listen to this. Then he quotes from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Unquote. Sometimes the practitioner wavers in his efforts, from Shravandas through Dharana, and then Smarana to Samadhi. The steps are long, with many opportunities for disappointment. When he is enthusiastic, the devotee thinks, quote, although it will take a long time, I am sure I can become a pure devotee. And Krishna immediately replies, yes, be determined and be faithful. Do not leave me again. Unquote. Yet a lack of good sadhana results in spiritual weakness. So devotee says, but sometimes I feel like giving up. As the ultimate well-wisher, Krishna continues his support, quote, do not be disgusted with yourself or with the challenges to your bhajan. Be certain that by my grace you will succeed. That conviction is called avina cetasa. Hearing this, the sadhaka gains heart. For again, after some time, he thinks, quote, after so many years, I'm still struggling with desires. Where is Samadhi? Why has Krishna not recognized my efforts? Okay. Krishna. Smiling, the Lord, who is often blamed for his bad choices of his children, replies, quote, do not be faint of heart. It may appear that you are not getting anywhere, but I see it differently. Anyone conclude that sometimes in your spiritual practice? I'm not getting nowhere. I'm going nowhere fast.
Yeah.
How do you see it? Krishna's voice is as sweet as honey and as smooth as ghee. I see you like the little sparrow trying to empty the ocean. Do you know the story? The devotee replies, yes, I do. How much did the sparrow achieve in his attempt to retrieve his nest from the ocean? Not much. But then the sadhaka continues. Narada sent Garuda, who threatened the ocean, and the sparrow got back his nest. Krishna nods, slightly shaking his shark-shaped earrings. Quote, and when I come, or when I send my associate, then the ocean of your sadhana will become like a water in a calf's hoofprint. You will step over it while dancing in Sankirtan. Unquote. With these convincing words laced with the sweetest nectar, the devotee again takes heart. Quote, why am I so foolish to lament? I should count my lucky stars. After who knows how many lifetimes perfection is just a stone's throw away. Let me try for it, and if I do not get it in this life, I will in the next. Unquote. With such determination, the devotee takes shelter of Nam Sankirtan, and as his heart becomes purified, his mind comes under control, and so his senses enter Krishna's exclusive shelter. Then a quote from Bhagavad Gita again. No, it's not from Bhagavad Gita. It's just from, 1 second. Yes, it is Bhagavad Gita 6:25. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. Thus, the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. It's okay if I read like this, not stopping much?
Yeah.
Let's just hear that it's a couple of pages. Just, you know. The process of Nam Bhajan is systematic. By constant effort in Smaran, the practitioner gradually masters his mind and senses and is able to be absorbed in Krishna's name by fully concentrated intelligence. Buddhya Triti Grahitaya. That is the stage of dharana. With the mind now a friend, it can be absorbed in further meditation on Krishna's form, qualities, and pastimes. Atma Shamshtam Manaha Kritva. This is the stage of dhyana meditation. Then gradually, step by step, the devotee attains anusmriti, constant remembrance, and finally trance. Provided that he protects himself on all sides and does not get distracted by illusion, Krishna consciousness in trance becomes the devotee's permanent state, aparamit. These gradual steps towards bhava bhakti are the sankalpas which, like the waxing moon, increasingly illuminate with their rays the darkness of the directions. When the moon is full, it reveals Krishna playing his flute by the bank of the Yamuna, and as the sadhaka looks on in wonder, Krishna approaches and smiling sweetly says, quote, my beloved devotee, did I not tell you that you would meet with success? But the sadhaka is speechless. Is he dreaming? Is this a vision in his mind? Is he seeing Krishna with his eyes, hearing Krishna with his ears? The Lord teases, did I not tell you that it would all be worthwhile? Falling prostrate before the Lord, the sadhaka tries to speak, but the words are stuck in his throat. Yet in his heart, he manages to answer, an answer that becomes his love song. Yes, quote, yes, it was all worthwhile, unquote. The moon always shines. At night it is visible, in the day it is not. And so Krishna and his entourage also become invisible. All that is left are footprints in the sands by the Yamuna's shore, the same footprints that are impressed within the sadhaka's heart. And while the bliss of encountering Krishna enlivens the devotee's being, that same bliss drives him forward for more. But that more is not to be had in the realm of sadhana. It exists par excellence in the realms of prema. And it is to that abode of consciousness that he must now transition. Of all sankalpas, the one from samadhi to bhavapana is the most challenging. That's ultimate perfection. Yeah? It will be a sankalpa that is as much dependent on grace from above as the efforts of the sadhaka. Thakur Bhaktivinoda writes, quote, because Vraj Bhakti is the most desirable goal, it is the living entity's eternal duty to cultivate it up to the state of samadhi by following the mood of the residents of Vraj, unquote. The reader may wonder, does this mean that a devotee should stop at the stage of Smaran Samadhi? The Acharya's answer would be no. The intent of the Thakur is to urge the sadhaka to advance to the stage of trance in sadhana, and by the grace of Nam Sankirtan, proceed to taste the nectar of Raj Bhakti in Bhava Samadhi, and thereafter in Prema Samadhi. Okay, one page left. So, okay, we're reading like this. Right. When the Lord spoke in 4 verses, the very essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, he too encouraged Brahma to pursue cultivation to the far end of bhakti. He said, quote, "You must never stop, but continue your quest until you reach this." What is this? Trance in prema. Krishna taught Brahma, quote, from Bhagavatam. A person who is searching after the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this in all circumstances and all space and time, both directly and indirectly, unquote. The goal of this quest may be a challenge, but then nothing of value is ever achieved without a corresponding effort. That effort is the way of bhakti sankalpas, the same effort to which the Lord encouraged Lord Brahma at the conclusion of talks at the dawn of another creation. Quote, another verse. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by the method of constant endeavour for self-realisation, with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. Hari Om, that's it. Hare Krishna. So that completes this chapter. And that completes part 6. Now we're going to part 7. Okay, in part 7, next week we're going to start. And we're going to speak about Bhava Seva, the mood, the Sankalpa for chanting with emotion. We're going to speak about Lord Chaitanya and Vipralamba Seva. We're going to be discussing cultivating Vipralamba and the perfection of separation. That's part 7, okay? And then we conclude with part 8. So amazing, we've gone through this whole book. Looks like we're going to complete it as well. Any questions, any comments on what we just read? I hope you felt encouraged by that.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly how our mind does, it thinks exactly what Maharaj is saying, and Krishna would reply like that,
Yeah.
And every time you go through something, you think, oh, I can't do it. How did I do it? How did I do it? How did it happen? It's Krishna just there, holding your hand and pushing you through.
Like, no doubt, I mean, all devotees here, I'm sure you can do a look back on your life as a devotee, and you can definitely conclude that, my God, I've really been through some trials and tribulations. Yeah.
Yes.
And then that will
yes.
be over. Yeah.
And then how it all just works out,
Yeah, and we should think, okay, I mean, who are we? We are not Maharaj. We are not this. We are not that. We're just, we've got our own little devotional service we're doing. We're chanting our rounds and we're wherever, But no, Krishna's perfection can be achieved. You don't have to. Yeah, it's encouraging us in whatever situation we are in. We are endeavoring to achieve Krishna. We just got to keep on going,
I've realized something. You know how Prahlad Maharaj, like Lord Nrsimhadev, didn't come till he went through everything, thrown from a cliff with the snakes or everything, right? Prahlad went through everything. And when Nrsimhadev comes at the last minute to kind of save him. And that's my realization in my life in a way as well, that you're going through something and like praying, and Krishna just comes at the kind of a last stage to help you out of any situation.
Yeah, just when you was at least expecting it. And, and then you appreciate it much more. So Krishna's not cheap, but when he does manifest his mercy, or when you realize his mercy, it's all worth it. All right. I'm a bit tired now after reading that. So, okay, thank you everyone for joining in, and next week we'll continue part 7. Yeah, chanting with emotion. So it's a very interesting part. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So please join us tomorrow for
Praise
Bhagavad
Srila Prabhu ki jai.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare,
Gita. Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Ram Hari Ram Ram Ram.